Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar this morning with Gerry Harvey and BDO and Beef Central. We're really looking forward to hosting you here this morning, but we just thought we might give you a chance, just a minute to get all your settings and audio right just before we start. So we'll tune back in just a tick. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar today. I just thought I'd just sort of set the scene with what we're trying to achieve here, and that's adopting AgTech on farm and making it easy and to make the decisions and also to implement those technologies to improve our production. So can you visualize 900 jumbo jets landing at your local airport today, each deplaning 250 people? If so, you'll have a good grasp of daily real-time global population growth. Indeed, human numbers increase by over 228,000 people every 24 hours. Every minute, 150 plus additional people need energy, water, food, and space to inhabit. By year's end, that results in a 83 million person increase, or the equivalent of a New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, Greece, Sri Lanka, Portugal, and Singapore population annually. This creates demand for a significant amount of new resources the earth must yield. To do this, the agricultural sector and rural and regional businesses must improve advances in both technology and performance to meet these demands. The purpose of this session today is that we have identified ag technology as a key enabler to support our farmers improve their performance. So you can see here what we're up against in Australia alone. The variability in rainfall is quite extreme, reflected in our drought just recently. You can see Australia's variability is one of the highest in the world, in the developed world. You can see here within Australia all the different systems that need support by rainfall and the consistency in rainfall across those areas. And also just recently the pandemic of COVID and the impact on food and global population and nutrition. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's James Walker, a 5th generation cattle and sheep producer from Longreach, who was awarded an Nuffield Scholarship for Innovation and later Australian Farmer of the Year for Excellence in Diversification. I'm passionate about global food systems, and I'm on a mission to build and profile the best ag technologies in the world to improve farm performance. A few years ago, I started an organisation with the mandate to tackle crisis points in agriculture and generate actionable ideas. Evidenced by the recent drought and COVID-19 events, it has been revealed that we need greater adoption of technologies on farm to deal with market volatility and rainfall variability. So in partnership with AgTech Central, we're launching this webinar and podcast series to profile the most practical and supported approach to implementing proven technologies for your farm, both in your fields and in your offices. Today we'll be interviewing Gerry Harvey to ask him about his utilisation of technologies and how important they are to his performance in managing his retail chain and his farm interests. We'll also be hearing a presentation on how you can take advantage of different tax settings to invest in ag tech and business technology for your farm and business, and hear about a new national relationship forged to help producers adopt with confidence and support. To kick things off today, our special guest is founder and chairman Gerry Harvey, who has become one of Australia's most celebrated businessmen through his visionary strategies, discipline, determination, and use of technologies. will also be, sorry. Good morning, Gerry. You on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm alive and well. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks for joining us. Gerry, before we get started, I just want to share something with you. At breakfast this morning, my 9-year-old daughter was asking me, Dad, who is Gerry Harvey? I thought for a minute and responded, well, darling, Gerry is an Australian from Sydney who loves anything Australian related to business, farming and horses. She responded, well, Dad, I think we would get along famously. I love horses too. And here's a photo of Chloe with her horses, Gerry. I understand you're breeding up to 1,000 and racing up to 1,000 thoroughbreds this year, which is a great achievement.
Well, I had a little daughter like that, and then she grew up and she's now 26. And I had to take her around in a float like that, all over all the horse shows and everything. Now she lives in Holland and she's trying to get into the Olympics. And we built her a stable complex over there, 28 stables. And she's getting married to the guy she lives with, and he's trying to get into the Olympics as well. And that's all she does every day. Ride horses, tries to get that champion horse. But she hates thoroughbreds. I said, Georgie, one day you'll come into thoroughbreds. And she said, no, I won't. I said, why don't you like it? It's boring. I said, oh. So all she wants to do is ride a horse, compete with a horse. And what I'm trying to do is breed champion race horses. And one day I'm hoping that because I've got 4 kids, she's the only one that's got any real interest in horses. And if I drop off the cliff, what happens to Georgie? She doesn't want to do it. Neither do the other 3 kids. This is no good. So I've got to talk her into it. But I built her a stable complex over there that's, I think, is as good as anything in the world. If you want to see the best stables, quality of stables, and we've got a huge indoor arena that they can compete in, and then I've got a huge outdoor, and you've got to keep the sand fairly moist all the time. So we've got a system over there where we've got a water trough underneath the sand, and it keeps it moist all the time, as opposed to having sprinklers on the top. And it's the latest technology over there for this sort of operation, you know, where you're training horses. So the thing they've got over there is, it's exceptional. I've never seen anything better in the world. We've done it with the latest technology, the latest everything, just magnificent. There's nothing in Australia as good as it.
Brilliant, Gerry. No, well, that's very exciting. It might be a sign of things to come for me as a father of a true.
What will happen to you is one day that daughter of yours will say, Dad, can I meet Georgie Harvey? And you'll ring me and we'll send her over to Holland, and she can spend a week with them in Holland, and she'll get, then my advice to you would be, figure out how to make a lot of money real quick, because you'll need it.
Yeah, sounds good. I might need more advice on the latter, I think, Gerry, to support Chloe. But Gerry, it is a true honour to speak to you this morning, and I just wanted to sort of get into the technology, which I believe you've got some great background in. So I thought what we might do is just set the scene a little bit, and you know, sort of when you started out, I believe you left school in year 11, and you've now amassed a retail empire in the billions, and you're much celebrated business identity, which we applaud in your leadership and achievements. I suppose I just wanted to talk about where you started off before we get into Family Fresh Farms and the technology that you're employing there. Where you started up in the country, how you got into business, and yeah, now of course you live in Sydney. So yes, I just sort of throw it over to you to see, you know, how you started out and how you got into business.
Oh, well, I was brought up in the country. I went to school at Bathurst and Katoomba, and on holidays I'd work on farms. So I always just wanted to be a farmer, but then I had no money, and so I ended up being a salesman instead of a farmer, and so I started as a salesman, and then I saw that there was an opportunity to open my own business, so I did. At the age of 22, I opened my own business called Harvey Norman, and that changed the name after a while to Norman Ross, and that grew into a chain of 42 shops in New South Wales and Queensland. I sold that out in 1982, and then in the 3 months later started Harvey Norman again. And then that's been spectacularly successful because now we're in 8 countries. We're in Australia, New Zealand, we're in Singapore, Malaysia, Slovenia, Croatia, Ireland, and Northern Ireland. And we're expanding to go into other countries over the next few years. So we're a very successful retail company that's been able to expand and go overseas. Now, at the same time, I've always had this farming interest, horse interest, anything to do with cattle, anything to do with vegetables or fruit or anything. So I've always been very keen on that. So at the moment, I've been in Wagyu cattle for about 15 years, and I've got about maybe 15,000 head, and they're scattered across various feedlots. And lately I've got into this cucumber business. Then I've also got cattle properties. I've got 2 horse studs in New Zealand, and I've just bought another one I'm developing at the moment. I'm involved with 3 horse studs in Australia. We own Magic Millions, which is, we took that over in 97, I think it was, or something. It was in administration, and we've developed that into the #1 horse sale in the Southern Hemisphere. And even 10 years ago, if you'd said to someone, would Magic Millions ever top our opposition, they'd say no. Today, they would say it's amazing what's happened, and we did it out of a Queensland base, and did it in states, the states we're in and dominate, Tasmania, Western Australia, South Australia and Queensland. Our opposition have got the 2 best states, which are New South Wales and Victoria. So it goes to show you that even though they might have a big advantage, a big start, if you work on it, even though you're not in the best position, you can still triumph in the end. So from my point of view, I'm extremely, I'm very motivated, always have been. I'm 80 years of age now, and I'm figuring, I spoke to Rupert Murdoch about this in the last 12 months, because he's nearly 90. And I said to him, what are you going to do? Because I've been watching him I first had lunch with him, I think when he was about 40 or 45. And he's been the most successful business product ever by a mile, from Australia to succeed the way he has and influence world business and world politics in America and in the UK. So his mother lived to 100 or a little bit over, and I've been to a farm down in Victoria, and Craddock Farm, and so he thinks he's going to live to 100. So he's my role model, because I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, can I live to 100 and do this? Now my energy level at the moment, I think, is just as strong as it was when I was 20, and I work just as hard, but I love what I do, and I've got all this variety. From my point of view, I look at it and think, who else has got as many business interests that I've got across so many different areas? And so, I do a lot of real estate developments. I'm involved in so many different businesses that every day when I come to work, it's like a challenge. There's this and that, and there's a tragedy here and a triumph there, and I'm just such a lucky individual. I always thank God for the fact that I am that lucky. I've just been extraordinarily lucky.
And Gerry, so in terms of the businesses that you invest in and the impact of different market shocks, like, it might be COVID, or it might be, drought, or it might be something like that. How has technology played a role there? And I just wanted to see what you would just get a bit of a comment on, I suppose, business being the powerhouse of the Australian economy, and particularly farming and agriculture, how you see opportunities for business and agriculture through technology.
Well, the first computer store in Australia I opened, and people came out to look at it, the opposition, and had a look. It was at Auburn in Sydney about 8 years ago. And they said, oh, he's too early, he's too early. It went off like a rocket. And then I thought, I've got to open up a heap more. So for the next 3, 4, 5 years, I concentrated on opening up in every state, every store, overseas, computer shops. And I had no opposition for 10 years. I thought, this can't be right. I mean, I'm going so well. And then, of course, I got people like JB Hi-Fi woke up to it was a good business, and the good guys, Office Works. So now I've got more competition. So, but I was just in such a wonderful place because I thought I'd get a year's start. I actually got 10 years start. So now, with this COVID thing, those computer stores have gone through the roof because people are at home and they had to buy a whole heap of stuff. And when the COVID thing hit, computers went through the roof. And at the same time, freezers started to sell very well. And then straight after that, we started to sell fridges and washers. And then straight after that, we started to sell furniture and then bedding. And so now it's right across the board. And we've put out our figures yesterday, and we're up enormously on last year. So we were able to open in Australia all through this. We weren't able to open in any other country in the world to the extent we were in Australia. We'd be able to open up one shop or two shops or part of a shop, close, open up again, and that sort of thing. At the moment, though, we're back to opening up pretty much everywhere, except for Singapore. That'll open on the 1st of July. So
right.
Computers is where I started off and built this business, and it's all about technology. But if you ask me, am I a technologist? I'm not. So if you ask me questions about technology, I'm pretty bloody useless. But I understand I've got a lot of people working for me, and they're fantastic. So all I've got to do is make sure I've got the right people working for me, and the latest technology that comes out, I apply it. Now, on that cucumber farm, you've talked to the bloke that runs that. We imported the whole structure from Holland. Then we imported the grower from Holland. Now that means that we've got the best technology in the world. No one does it better than Holland. And this way it goes way back to the tulips. And I don't know what year the tulips were, 1650 or whatever. But tulips were then worth more than gold. And so when you think back 300 or 400 years ago that they had these almighty booms in product and tulips, it's sort of hard to believe now, but you know, it happened. And the technology with flowers and vegetables in Holland is right up there with the best in the world. So what I've done without having the knowledge to do myself is import and employ the best people in the world. And then I just back it with the business and money, business expertise and money, and that's how it works.
Brilliant. And Gerry, I've just got some slides up on the Family Fresh Farms at the moment. It was a joy to talk to Patrick and Wade, you know, at your farm there, and they just identified some really good technologies you've got. And one important aspect of the cucumber farm that you've got there that you might want to talk on is how the cukes originated. I understand that in Europe the cucumber glut was happening about sort of 15 years ago. So they pivoted and created these cukes, bred these cukes that are smaller, crunchier. And what market are you sort of targeting for those, Gerry?
Well, the interesting thing is that this product is loved by kids, so school kids. So if you want to test, all you do is you put a tomato, a cucumber, a grape, I don't know, and something else in a food box, and then you send the kid to school with it. If it comes back with whatever comes back the kid didn't eat, you don't want to be selling those. The cucumbers they all love, they never come back. So I've got a hot product. It's called a cuke, and the kids love it. And so when mum goes to the grocery shop, the kids say, "Don't forget the cukes, mum." And so we're supplying that market. I don't know what market share we've got, maybe 30% of the Australian market for cukes. and it's a hot product. And we on our best day, I think we picked 30 tonne. It's only ever happened once, but we've had a few 20-tonne days. And when you work out that even if you pick 10 tonnes for the day, it's a huge number of cucumbers, because they're 250 gram packs. So you get 4 to the kilo, and 1,000 kilos a tonne. So you've got 4,000 packs in 1 tonne that sells for $2.99, $3.99 or $4.99, depending on where you buy it. But if you pick 10 tonnes, you pick 40,000 packs in 1 day, or it's 80,000 packs in 1 day. And I've got 70 or 80 people picking. So it's right up there in the technology. It's the latest thing. No one in the world's doing it any better.
Yeah, and I understand, Gerry, that yeah, it's 5 hectares out there at Pete's Ridge, but the technology you've employed is very impressive, and especially, I suppose, the performance technology that Patrick was talking about in terms of the, I suppose, the pieces, pieces per head, and how you monitor the, I suppose, your staff in how they pick, what rates they pick, and every afternoon they go back to the workroom and they can see a dashboard, or they can see, I suppose, a screen and monitor on how they perform that day, being monitored by technology. And
well, we didn't start off that way, but now it's interesting because they all go up to their board. How many did I pick? How many did I pick? So you get a guy that can maybe earn $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. And these are people that are hired workers, hire firms, and these people come from Vanuatu. So the amount of money that they can earn in a 6-month stint in Australia would take them 20 years to earn in Vanuatu. So they come out here, do that stint, go back, and they've got money. So, but when we're employing them again, as they come backwards and forwards, because they want to come back again, you don't bring the bloke back that picked half as much as the other bloke. So every year, the quality of your picker gets a little bit better, because you've got the best people picking for you. On a really good day in the middle of the summer, sometimes you've got to pick those cucumbers twice a day. They grow that quickly.
Absolutely. And Gerry, it's quite interesting as well that you've also changed the nutrition of your workers as well to to provide 4 meals a day. So historically, the workers used to bring their own food, which was usually packaged, sort of processed and preservative-based food. And your office provides nutritional 4 meals a day, and the combination of the sort of the performance reviews that they have and the incentives they've got, and also the nutrition, Patrick was saying, has lifted your productivity on floor and packaging and picking by about 40%.
Yeah, well, see, these people come from families and groups that eat shit and process foods, and now we give them help, and they were eating that here and cooking it themselves. So you have a look at it and say, these poor buggers don't know any better. So then you give them really good food to eat, nutritious, no crap, and they don't have to cook it themselves. Now maybe they'll go back home and they'll start to say, you can eat better than this. And so that might help them in the future. So it's a good thing we're doing.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. And so, Gerry, I was just going to ask you, in terms of the ag technology and adoption on farm, there's a bit of hesitation, I suppose, for farmers to adopt, the newest and latest technology. Of course, it has to be proven, but I was going to try and draw a similarity between you acquiring a business. What key sort of indicators do you look for in acquiring a business in terms of investment? And then is that similar to how you decide on a business case for a new technology integrated into that business? So what sort of things do you look at? Do you look at payback, or how do you sort of look at those investments?
Let me get to this in a second. So what's happened in the last 20 years, I've been involved with a bloke called Peter Andrews, and he's written a couple of books and everyone's heard about him, and I don't know whether you have. Have you heard of him or not?
No, but go on, sorry.
Anyway, so he's written a couple of books, and it's all about sustainable. And so And we've involved with General Jeffries on a Soils for Life, and talking to farmers about best practice on their farms and using that, and trying to get other farmers to follow the advice of the ones that are doing it better than anyone else. And so Peter and I have done a lot of things together. He was on 60 Minutes 3 times, I think. Not 60 Minutes, the one ABC, what's the one on ABC when they talk about Australian lives? Can't think of it, doesn't matter. So I've spent a lot of time with him on what you do with water and soil and plants, and whether you use superphosphate or fertilizers or whatever you use. So there's a whole area out there in farming that's yet to be explored and yet to be, developed. And so I've had a big interest in that, and he's a bloke that I've just spent a lot of time with. So he's talking about water and streams and fertility. And so if any of your listeners read his books, they're worth reading. And even though you might not agree with some of the things he talks about, like he wants to leave willows in creeks, and yet most people think you should pull willows out of creeks. I think willows in creeks are a necessary thing to have, and yet others think they're a weed. So there's a lot of controversial things talked about. So when I'm going out to buy a business, let's take Rebel Sport, for instance. I bought Rebel Sport maybe 15 years ago, 16 years ago. The guys that were running it at the time came to see me and said, look, you could probably do a better job with this than we can. Would you be? And it was a public company. So I bought it, and we got in there and changed a lot of things. And then over a 5-year period, we developed that business and then sold it to private equity for 5 times what we bought it for. Now, that was a wonderful deal, because you bought a public company. It's a retail shop selling sporting goods. It's the best brand in the business. It's called Rebel Sport. And we could see that if we did certain things with the shops, with the advertising, with the people, that we could make that business a lot better. Now, we didn't think that we could make it 5 times as good in 5 years. That's extraordinarily good. If you make it double, you've done it very well. But we did. And then we sold it. But that was a case of, I've looked at a business and I've looked at it and thought, I can make that better. I didn't think I could make it 5 times better, but we did. Then Magic Millions, I looked at that in 96 or 7. It was in receivership. And I said to a good friend of mine said to me, it's for sale, why don't you buy it? And I said, and then I went back to him a bit later, David Chester. And I said, David, I will have a look at that. Who's the bloke that's in charge of the receivership? So he told me, so I went and saw him. And I said, look, I probably will buy this. I've had a look at the books. And he said, well, I've got a couple of people doing due diligence at the moment. And I said, well, let me tell you something. I'll give you the money tomorrow, and I don't want to do any more due diligence than what I've done. He said, you couldn't be serious. And I said, yes, I am. And I bought it. And then I rang up John Singleton and said, you want a quarter share? And he just lost some money in racehorses with me, so he slammed the phone down in my ear. And that was nice of him. And then 2 minutes later, he rang back, yeah, mate, I'm in for a quarter. And then I rang Rob Ferguson, who used to run BT Australia. And I said to him, and he was in Europe somewhere, and Rob's one of those blokes, you put it to him and then there's a great long silence. You don't know whether he's gone to sleep, or it's like talking to some, farmer on the road sometimes in the old days. You pull up and you say, mate, do you know how far it is to the next town or where it is or something? And he'd say, yeah. And you'd say, well, and then you wait for a while, because Then you wait a bit longer, you think, yeah. And he says, yeah, it's up the road. You don't take the first on the left. You don't take the second. You take the third on the left. And you think, this bloke's taken 15 minutes to tell me something he could have told me in a minute. So I thought Rob was in one of his farming times, you know, thinking. Then he said, yeah, okay, I'll take a quarter. So we ended up, I owned half, they owned a quarter each, and about 7 or 8 years ago, I bought them out. But Magic Millions has been a huge success, and I've bought many other businesses over the years. So,
and so Gerry,
and some of them, I've done, like I bought into a dairy farm in Shepparton in Victoria and lost 75 million, but I had the worst partner that God ever created.
Yeah, and Gerry, so in terms of you know, sort of, I suppose, if you've got any tips for farmers looking to adopt technology, what would your advice be on how to sort of make the right decision on that? Is it to ask the right questions to the supplier, or you know, what advice would you give them on adopting new technology on farm?
Oh, I don't think it's any different to any business. You look at the best farmers and you go and talk to them. You find out who's the best in my district, or who's the best interstate, or if they're doing something overseas better. And a lot of farmers do those overseas trips. They don't do those interstate trips. And it's a matter of, farmers have been particularly, I think over the years, most people would say, Dad did it this way and his dad did it that way, and that's how I'm doing it. And they don't open their minds enough to what's actually happening around them. And so I would say my experience would, most farmers would be fairly conservative. But then there's the others out there that they're looking at, what does the other guy do? How does he do it better than me? And that's no difference to me in my shop. I'm selling stuff in my shop and I'm looking at who's the best in the world at doing this, and I'm trying to find out who that is and try and do it better than him. Now, I've opened a shop in Auburn in Sydney, a flagship store that I think is the best in the world. And I've had people from all over the world come in, suppliers, manufacturers, other retailers, and I said, tell me a shop in the world in this category that's as good as the Harvey Norman flagship store at Auburn. They can't tell me. So I'm very happy that I've developed something that I think is as good or better than any other store in the world in our product category. So
absolutely,
to me, doing something better than everyone else is very important. So technology has to come into play, obviously. So you need the latest technology, you need the latest brains, the latest new ideas, and you're out there open to all of these things. You can't just sit back and let the world go by, because guess what? It will go by, and you'll be left behind.
Absolutely, Gerry. And a lot of your staff that I've talked to over the last week in sort of preparing for this have said that one thing about Gerry is Gerry asks the right questions, and I think that's true with our farming community. You know, we've got to ask the right questions and know what opportunities we need to fill on our farms to get the right technology and the right business sort of strategies. So it's a credit to you that you're still asking questions, and to any level of staff that I've talked to, they said that you ask the right questions, they're on point. But Gerry, I really commend you this afternoon for coming on, and I'd love to talk more on the technology and the business achievements that you've done. But we've got another presenter on that's coming up. But just in passing, I wanted to see what you thought of the racing field this year and who might win the Melbourne Cup.
Oh, I'm not a fan of the Melbourne Cup anymore, I'm afraid. The Melbourne Cup used to be a great Australian race, and it was won by Australian horses or New Zealand horses. Today, it's a great European race, and all the starters that come from somewhere else in the world other than Australia. And every now and again, you get 1, 2 or 3 starters, and every now and again, you'll get an Australian horse wins, but very rare. There was one recently, and they've just made a film of it. And that film wouldn't have happened, Ride Like a Girl. And that wouldn't have happened without my wife was the one that started the funding for that, for Rachel Griffiths, the producer. And that film's gone off. It's been fantastic. And it's good for racing. It's a good story. Even people who are not interested in racing, if they've seen the movie Ride Like a Girl, they love it. The kids all love it. Your daughter particularly would have loved it, I would have thought. Do you know whether she's watched it?
Absolutely. No, it's on the list now though, Gerry. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll guarantee you, your daughter, when she watches that, will say, Dad, why didn't you tell me that movie was there to watch? So the Melbourne Cup's a great institution in Australia. I'm just a little sad that it's ended up being a race for European horses and not Australian and New Zealand horses. But that's the way it is. And I have no great, if you said to me, which races would you like to win? There are a heap of them I'd like to win before the Melbourne Cup, like the Derbies and the Oaks and the Slippers and things like that. So it's not on my, now would have been when I was a young bloke in my 20s, 30s and 40s, the Melbourne Cup would have been the horse race I wanted to win. But now I got to say it's not.
Okay, well that's great, Gerry. Well, I hope to see you in. Thanks so much for your time this morning. I hope to see you up in Longreach one of these days, and we can show you around the technology on our farm here, and we'd love to visit Pete's Ridge. But we might wrap up there and say thank you very much for your time this morning. Looking forward to speaking more on the opportunities we've got with some of your retail chains later in the webinar.
Okay, James. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Gerry.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we've got to talk on the AgTech, I suppose, opportunities and tax time this year. We've enlisted the help of BDO and I suppose Jodie Knowlton, who's a specialist in tax and advisory. So we thought we might throw to Jodie now, and if you're thinking of implementing ag technologies to improve the performance and productivity of your farm, there's some opportunities there that Jodie will share with you now to help accelerate that adoption and things that are available now.
Thanks, James, and that was a great conversation with Gerry there. So it's really interesting, all the stuff that he's been doing and the accomplishments he's had over his career, and I'm sure there's going to be many, many more to come. So today, as James said, we're going to chat through the tax opportunities available to businesses and farmers at the moment. So we're going to cover off on a few different topics. I'll just try and get my screen to move. There we go. So, what we're going to talk through is we're going to run through the instant asset write-off in relation to that's available at the moment. We're going to run through the other prime production immediate deductions that are available for people if they're investing in technologies and other plant and equipment. And then quickly run through the R&D tax incentives to give a bit of an overview as to what that means and how that could be applicable to your businesses. One thing I'd like to point out to start with is technology is really only one part of a business's overall strategy. So working with it and deciding what technology you should implement should also be part of the wider goals for the family and the business as a whole. And also consideration should be taken in relation to the operating structure and which activities are happening and what. And that kind of plays into the tax stuff that we're going to talk through here. So first up, the instant asset write-off. This has been around for a while, but as part of the COVID measures, there's been a real bump in it, which I think is a great opportunity for people at the moment who are looking to do stuff in relation to investing in technology. So at the moment, the instant asset write-off is available for businesses that have turnover of less than 500 million, and they can write off up to 150,000 per asset. And this is available from any assets that were new assets or second-hand assets that are installed and ready for use between 12th of March 2020 and 30th of June 2020. There was actually an announcement 2 days ago from the Treasurer that he's intending to extend that to 31st of December 2020. So you've got some extra time there, and we're expecting that it's probably going to pass legislation. So it's an extra time to be able to utilise this availability. This is only, just so you're aware, from 1st of January 2021, the instant asset write-off then drops down to only $1,000 per asset. So there's a big difference in there in relation to if you bought something on the 31st of December compared to the 1st of January. It's also worth noting that this is only available for all businesses for plant and equipment, but for primary production businesses, the definition of plant is actually extended to include capital improvements. So that can be satellite towers, it can be new yards, new sheds and so forth like that. So things that are attached to the land that's used in prime production activity. So it's also just quickly the government has also announced, oh, my slides are jumping around the place, there we go, has also announced a backing business investment incentive. So this is for any assets that are purchased with no threshold attached to it. So you can spend $600,000 or $400,000 between 12th of March and 30th of June 2021, so 12 months time. And you can get an immediate deduction for up to 50%, for 50% of the value, and then you depreciate the balance over the life of the asset based on the ordinary rules. This is only available for new assets and only for assets that were committed to being purchased post 12th of March. So just a quick example in there, if you're buying a tractor that's cost $145,000, if you bought it on the 1st of March, which was prior to the 12th of March, you get a deduction in there of $6,000 this year and $23,000 next year. If you're buying one after first, like on the 1st of April, which is after the 12th of March, then you get an instant write-off of $145,000 and then nothing next year because you've written off the full value that time. But then if you buy it post when the instant asset write-off is available, you can utilise the backing business investment incentive. So if you buy that on the 1st of January, then next year you'd get an immediate deduction of $72,000, being half of it, and then extra $6,000 just for the depreciation for the year. So it really shows there that the timing around assets and when they're getting purchased is pretty critical in your planning side of things. There's also some other prime production immediate deductions that are available, and this doesn't have the time restraints on it like the other ones until legislation changes. But that covers off an immediate deduction for any prime production assets that are acquired in relation to fencing assets, fodder storage assets, water facility assets, and land care operations. Now, these need to be new assets or ones that haven't been claimed under these provisions before by anyone else. The difference in these are available as a deduction when the expenses are incurred, as opposed to the other ones, it's when they're actually installed ready for use. So when you spend the money to start with, as opposed to when you've got them ready to be used on farm. And these need to be undertaken in the entity that's actually doing the primary production activity. So if you've got different entities within your structure, then you need to be careful as to which one's actually buying them. So just a quick slide here in relation to some of the different assets that fall within those 4 different categories. Just in the essence of time, I won't necessarily run through them, but normally anything that's associated with fencing, fodder storage, water facilities, or land care operations, there may be an opportunity in there to be able to claim under those. I just thought quickly, farm management deposits. This is available for producers as a tax planning opportunity. If you're an individual, partner in a partnership, or beneficiary of a trust that's carrying on a prime production business in Australia, and you have less than 100,000 in non-primary production income, you can put a farm management deposit into the selected bank accounts and get a deduction when the money goes in, and then when it's withdrawn, then that's classed as income to you. There's a few criteria around how long you need to hold it for, which kicks in and kicks out in relation to whether you're in drought or natural disasters and so forth. But this could be an opportunity in there to consider whether, if you're wanting to do some of these improvements on the property, you do have some money in farm management deposits, whether that's an opportunity there to be able to take it out and then use that cash on deductible items. I would want to note that just be careful of the structure, because this will be income in the individual name, whereas a deduction might be over in a different entity that may not flow through to the individual. So you've just got to be a little bit careful on that. So then research and development tax incentive. This is to encourage companies to engage in research and development activities, which is all in line with the AgTech and the innovation side of stuff that we're doing here. So to be eligible for this, you need to be a company. So that's the key point. You need to be an incorporated company that's undertaking R&D activities on their own behalf. They have to incur at least 20,000 worth of R&D activities within the year, and they need to register the activity with Oz Industries by certain timeframes. So usually each year it's a retrospective registration. So 30th of April is normally when you have to have it registered for the previous year. But due to the COVID measures, this has been extended for the 30th of June 19 year for registration to be 30th of September 2020. So once we run through all this, if you've actually engaged some of these kind of activities in a company structure, you've got an opportunity at the moment to register the activity with Oz Industry, and then if you've already lodged your tax returns, which is where you claim your R&D tax incentive through, then that can be amended to include that benefit. So what's eligible activity in relation to R&D? So basically, there's a technical terminology on the screen there that I could run through, but basically it's where there's information that when you're trying to do something, that information as to what the outcome of what you're going to do isn't available to you. So you start an activity and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And as part of that, you've got to go through a process to then work out what the outcome you get to. So that's the core of the R&D activities, and any costs that you incur around that could be eligible expenditure. Then there's supporting activities, which are like overheads and depreciation on use of assets, which could come into play there, which is available as supporting activities to it. Another thing, the interaction with the instant asset write-off in there is that if you're buying a piece of plant that you're going to use 100% in R&D activities, then that, because it's eligible for the instant asset write-off, you can then claim it under the R&D perspective as well, as long as you're not in a small business pooling regime. So there's a few ins and outs in there, but there's something that's an opportunity in there to get that benefit. So what is the benefit? So the benefit, they're split into two. It's based on either the refundable tax offset or non-refundable tax offset. The refundable amount is based on if you've got turnover of less than 20 million, and you essentially get a net tax benefit of 16 cents in the dollar on any activity any cost that you incur. If the company is in losses, who's done that, then you can get up to 43 cents in the dollar. For the non-refundable tax offset, the tax benefit is 8.5 cents. There is legislation in it, there is a proposed amendment in with the Senate at the moment, which we're expecting to have back on the 7th of August, that could change some of these rates. So as an example of some of the R&D activities that you could undertake, it could be around a new feed mix for cattle. It could be around new technology in relation to improving soil conditions, nutrient uptake and yields from it, around genetics and a new cattle line that have an improved feed efficiency, reduced methane and different emissions around the place, or even down to a new state-of-the-art boning room within an abattoir to increase carcass throughput. Now, these are just on-farm examples, but yeah, great opportunity in there for people who are wanting to do that. And that's me. So if you've got any questions at all, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Jodie. That's brilliant. And that R&D tax incentive program, I've heard a lot of producers starting to interact with, and also ag tech companies. So we're interested to probably hold another webinar, particularly just on that. So that will be exciting coming up. What I thought we might do now is just switch over to Joel. Joel, are you online there?
I am. Thanks, James.
Brilliant. So Joel is from Harvey Norman Commercial, and in terms of I suppose adopting ag tech and technologies in the farm and businesses, Joel is at the forefront of supporting people whereby they explore, I suppose, the holistic view of the farm or the business and provide solutions in a very supportive role. So Joel, I'll hand it over to you now, and I'll just we'll wait for your presentation. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks James, and thanks Jodie from BDO. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of this webinar to the greater community. Ladies and gentlemen, today I wanted to announce a new national strategy for ag tech adoption in Australia. When James came to us, he identified that the ag tech community and farmers needed a support approach to tackling their technology and adoption needs. And I guess the problem came down to uncertainty. So after many discussions and research, we found that trust and support was a major issue when designing ag and business tech solutions. Our solution to this is that we have assembled a team of specialists in our commercial division in Toowoomba. And for any farmer or agribusiness across Australia, we can now assign a relationship manager to review your farm with you, your business, your production system, and your technology needs. These can range from system integrations to connectivity needs to office and farm software, hardware, and even the Internet of Things. We will provide any farm, ag business or corporate firm in Australia the support and team required for them to enable food production and business performance as part of a team with you. So we believe that the most critical community that we can support is our farming community with better access and support to that tech needs. We know that ag tech means many different things to many different people, which is why we don't take a cookie cutter approach to each of the individual needs. We tailor a solution with you to try to achieve the end goal, no matter what that may be. We aren't here to peddle any particular product or service. We're here to help with you to find the right solution for your needs, regardless of how big or how small that is. We know there's been a massive influx of tech into the ag sector over the last couple of years, and sometimes the systems don't have adequate support and backup, and it can't form part of a larger ambition for you as an individual. We take a systems approach, as you know your business better than anyone else, so we aren't here how to tell you, we're just here to ask the right questions and work with you on the solutions. We work closely with James and Bruce at Foodleys Australia, with the wider farming community to get input on what solutions are needed, and this helps us get a better understanding of the benefits of ag tech, and that implementation piece is huge. I guess common trends that we're finding, especially in regarding confusion in the ag tech spaces, integration. So as you adopt more technology, how do the different pieces of hardware and software work together? Connectivity is a massive one. So how do you connect your entire farm? How can you get signal down to a back paddock, or how do you get better mobile signal in and around the property? And the biggest one for us is probably trust. So how do you find the support that you can rely on? When working with new tech firms, how do you trust the service? How do you trust the longevity of the business? And unfortunately in this space, people come and go very quickly, with a lot of brands disappearing just as quickly as they appear. Most customers we find want to know that they can go back to somebody if they have any issues. And as you heard from our chairman earlier, we've been in business since 1982, and we hope to be here for a lot longer. Where to start and what is available is also another big piece of that pie. Depending on your situation, location, and your industry, all these questions have different answers, and we want to work together to find the right solution for you. So I know we've actually spoken offline, James, and highlighted quite a few of the things that you personally see great benefit in, and things that you weren't aware were existing. So one of the biggest parts for us, you know, as we spoke about, was connectivity. So something as simple as if your farmhouse is 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers from your front gate, having the ability to be able to unlock that gate, have a video feed of who's at the front gate and let them through without costing you an absolute arm and a leg. The solutions are quite easy. If somebody's, you know, nicking sheep out of the back paddock, how do you get eyes on that? How do you get a camera solution to be able to find those issues? We can help with those sort of things. big one being for us, which is a relatively new thing, is some thermal technologies implemented by Panasonic and their tough range of devices, where you can actually scan the cattle as they're coming up through the race. Bruce from Food Leaders Australia, as soon as we showed him, his eyes lit up, and he can catch a beast on the way down to being sick, so you have much less weight loss, and you can put that beast back on the path to recovery a lot quicker. You had some questions surrounding this space, didn't you, James?
Yeah, absolutely, Joel. I was amazed at the actual solutions that you can provide, but also the support. So in terms of that trust and that uncertainty on where to start with AgTech and how to improve productivity, performance, or profitability, there's a lot of aspects that we can sort of cover. And I think the actual uniqueness of this new relationship is that it can be guided, and it's not just a sale of a product. It's actually a suite of discussions and problem solving to improve the performance and productivity on farm with that team that you've assembled for AgTech, specifically for AgTech. So I was just sort of running through your slides here, and there's just some examples of what there is, but what we might do is just I suppose formalize what the opportunity is there, Joel. And Joel, you were saying that for any audience member today, there'd be an opportunity to sort of do a review of their farm, a free review of their farm, just to kick things off.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone that was interested on the webinar, obviously in conjunction with yourselves, we've worked out that special VIP card, which is going to enable that commercial rate across the board, but then also having that ability to reach out, contact us. We want to sit down with you, free consultation, just to help solve any problems that you may have. Now, we're not as I've said before, you guys know your businesses better than we do. We just want to be helped. We just want to help to find the solution if there is one. If you've got a problem and you don't know how to fix it in terms of a technology need, we want to be there to help with it, not to just tell you what to do, but to help find the end goal.
Brilliant, Joel. And Joel, in terms of COVID and what's happened, have you seen a lot of farms upgrading their offices, with technology?
We have seen it quite a bit, and I guess from the farm point of view, we've found a lot of farmers have had a lot of these technologies implemented previously. Being remote, being away, they need to have the best of that technological needs in the home office. But there definitely has been some improvements over the last few years in terms of what those devices look like. With devices that you can take in the field, go back to the office and have dual monitor setups and that sort of thing. But we've definitely, COVID's forced the hand, and we've definitely seen a lot more people uptake in this technology space over the last few months in particular.
Great. So things like drones, and you've got all that technology there, and the specific part of this relationship is I suppose the VIP card that anyone gets in farming in Australia through this relationship. So we'll send out information on how people can sort of, I suppose, engage with that. It's purely optional. We're just trying to accelerate, I suppose, the awareness and the opportunities that AgTech presents to particular farms and offices, and also if there's any AgTech providers out there that want to get in touch with us, we're happy to sort of facilitate that. But what we might do, Joel and Jodie, is circulate an information sheet afterwards on that. And also, Jodie, I believe as part of the opportunity here today, you'd be happy to provide anyone that is looking at those tax opportunities with a free consultation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like what Joel was saying, here to help. So if anyone's got any questions about all that stuff that I ran through, there was a fair bit of information that I went through pretty quickly there. So yeah, happy to have a half an hour chat about anyone if they've got any questions or anything else. So
brilliant.
Feel free to reach out.
And in terms of questions and answers, guys, we might. I can see we went a fair way in sort of the presentations today, and we're right on 1 o'clock. So we're just going to throw to James Nation just quickly if he'd like to sort of just let everyone know what we're going to do with the with the Q&As. James, are you there?
Yeah, James, I am, and thanks very much, and thanks, Joel and Jodie, for your presentations. Look, we have had a number of questions come in, and as James mentioned, unfortunately, we have run out of time. So what we'll do is we will forward all of the questions we've been asked to the presenters, and we will get those questions answered, and then we'll send that out in an email, and then also a follow-up article on Beef Central and AgTech Central. We'll cover those answers. So really appreciate everyone for taking the time to send in your questions. Some great questions there, and James, thanks for your effort. Nice interview with Gerry Harvey. Good to learn a lot about his involvement in agriculture as well. So back to you, James.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to all the presenters today, and especially the audience. We've had a great number of attendees here today. We hope to do another one of these in a month, so please look out for that, and we'll try and nail the topics to address any farming and agricultural ag tech needs. But from me, that's just a thank you for joining us today, and we'll circulate more information to those people that joined and registered for the event. So thank you so much, and yeah, looking forward to catching up with you again another time. Give me a call if you'd like to discuss anything further. My contact details are on our website. So brilliant. Thanks so much.